Good afternoon, Secretary of State, honored guests. I'm very pleased to be here and I appreciate your invitation. This is the third time I'm speaking about e-government in Lisbon, and on each occasion it was very clear that Lisbon and Portugal and the Iberian countries were getting out in front in the information economy and the knowledge society. So it's wonderful to be in dialogue with you today. I was asked to speak about the web and transformation of public administration. Even though I'm a professor, I'll try not to be too boring. I'm going to tell you 3 stories and then try to point out some of the developments of the web that we should be thinking about, particularly as civil servants, as policymakers, as concerned citizens. 3 points that I want to make that are going to be made throughout this talk. First, that institutions are critical. Bureaucracies are not going away. They are the core of our governments and our societies. As we build citizen-centric capacity, as we mobilize things on the web, we do it in connection with strong, modernizing institutions. Second, when the internet began about 15 years ago with the World Wide Web, many futurists said the state, the nation state, will disappear. We will have new governing structures. This has been greatly exaggerated. Obviously, the nation state is not disappearing. In fact, states in many ways are getting stronger and becoming more central players, even amid globalization, regionalization, and lots of cross-boundary activities. Bureaucracy should modernize, but the bureaucracy as a form, a political form, a governmental form, is not going away. I like to think of institutions as digitally mediated institutions, which includes things that have already been talked about and that are being presented in the exhibitions in the exhibition halls. How to deliver services more effectively, more productively, to interact on a much deeper level with citizens, how we can innovate across boundaries, as the Secretary said, breaking down silos and gaining value by working across jurisdictions, building transparency, both to build democracy, but also to aid productivity. The other half of the equation that we are hearing about is citizen engagement. This concerns at least 3 things: giving greater amounts of information to citizens, giving citizens tools, digital tools, web-based tools, so that they can manipulate, analyze, mash up information on their own, in their own civil society groups. And then finally, there is the explosion of social media that allows citizens to organize more rapidly, more effectively, the use of visualization and visual tools changes the landscape, not only for information production, but also for politics and policy. The Center, the National Center for Digital Government, includes lots of papers, lots of videos. We have quite an archive on the site, and so I would recommend it to you if you are interested in reading and viewing some of the videos there. This is not an arm of the government. It is supported by the National Science Foundation of the United States, but it is a university-based research center. A book that I published, it seems like ages ago, about a decade ago, called Building the Virtual State, was meant to say that the internet did not change everything, but that new capacity would be layered on top of old, and that civil servants, political decision makers, public policy remains central, and that we would not just have a world in which individuals would be recreating things all the time. These ideas have had purchase around the globe. The Portuguese translation was produced by the National Public Administration School in Brazil, ENAP. Chinese translations, Japanese and Spanish is coming out, I'm happy to say, early next year, published by CIDE. Since that time, there's a world of information in this area. Beth Novak's book, Wiki Government, has a great deal to say about the use of social media, the use of crowdsourcing, and wide-scale, large-scale collaboration. She is, by the way, in charge directing the Open Government Initiative for the Obama administration. She arrived there because of the work she had been doing, specifically a program called Peer to Patent, where experts in the society at large are used to help analyze cases for new patents, and it's been very successful. Another area, of course, is networked government. This is the cover of David Singh Gruel's book, in which he describes how the economics and the behavioral dynamics of networks help us to understand how globalization is happening. So, other key points. The transformation of public administration is not just a dry exercise of streamlining and improving operational capacity. It is highly political in its acts. When information is made available to citizens, when citizens are invited to participate at deeper levels, one question is whether governments are ready to listen to what they have to say. There are strong political implications when we decide to work across jurisdictions and to reorganize agencies. These are highly political acts. They are not just dry capacity building exercises. First example, and this is the example of OHIM. Here's their building on the lovely Mediterranean. OHIM begins in the early 90s. They are what I would call a 21st century agency. We want to know what did they do and how did they do it. So we'll spend a fair amount of time today working through the achievements and the capacity building at OHIM and how this affects the rest of Europe. We won't take you all the way through this slide, but this is numbers of trademark applications according to the trademark offices of various European countries. The thick purple line is the growth of the community trademark, one trademark, good for 27 countries in the European Union. It's a very interesting idea. One of the things to see is that although trademark applications go down for almost every country when economies are doing poorly, they have gone back up again, and that national trademarks are not hurt by the community trademark, but the situation is evolving. Established by law in 1993, the trademark, the community trademark, becomes operational in 1996. We then have about 15 years of concerted capacity building and relationship building across all of the member states in Europe. Fee reductions. When do we ever see fee reductions in the government? For this agency, you had two major fee reductions. The productivity gains were so great, and I should mention, as I'm sure João Miranda de Sousa will mention, that this is a fee-for-service agency. Its operating budget is based on and is supposed to be directly connected to the fees it gets. So if it reduces its fees, it reduces its operating budget. It can only do that by having become much more productive. And then a wider cooperation agreement involving all of the member countries of the European Union. We produce a detailed case study of this in our research center, and you are very welcome to it. It's available, and the Spanish translation is also available online. We hope that this will be a learning tool. It's why we wrote it as a case study that can be used by public administrations and policy schools around the globe. So here's part of the OHIM website. You can see that it's a very well-designed, modern website, as you might expect. SMEs are small and medium-sized enterprises. Why am I showing you this? Because a key to economic growth, as we have already heard, is the ability, very often, of small businesses to get started and to protect their intellectual property. We do live in a world of openness and collaboration. Nevertheless, ideas, processes, logos, designs need to be protected in order for businesses to be protected. So a large part of what OHIM and national IP offices do is to work with firms to help them think about their intellectual property. Here's one example, Coppered Cress, a small firm growing organic micro vegetables in the Netherlands. It has become highly successful, still small. They are exporting these specialty vegetables to countries all over the world. This is a new kind of green technology, green businesses. There are many of them. And they need something like the community trademark to be able to do business in a despatialized, globalizing economy. OHIM began with a very simple vision. This is a very 1980s, 1990s kind of concept to have a paperless office. But this vision, which you could envision as a quite modern vision, had the reality at the time in the early 90s of basically having paper coming in through fax machines. In fact, in the case we talk about the beginnings of OHIM, when they had no idea how many trademark applications would be coming in, they were overwhelmed. The fax machines could not handle the paper. So right away, there was a huge capacity problem as they worked out how these things were going to be done. At the time, in the early 90s, some of you will remember this, high technology means you have these quite fragile and undependable floppy disks. So you can imagine from all over Europe, very important information is coming in on these disks. There is less interoperability than there is today. The information's getting degraded. So typical problems. Those of you working in agencies are nodding your heads. The point of this is that it's a long path, 10, 15 years of, as the secretary said, trial and error, picking up from the errors and continuing to go on to achieve this very modern-looking office that we see today. It was also unknown at the time what the uptake would be of applying online. And you can see over these years, this starts in a modest way. Companies and proprietors begin to understand the process, and the curve keeps going up. It's fair to say that most, if not all, of the business of the trademark offices will be handled online in the very near future. So what can we say about how this worked? You've already heard in our opening speeches, process redesign, looking at administrative procedures, every single step in the process and asking, why do we do things the way we're doing it? Are there some steps that are unnecessary? Perhaps a law was passed in the 1930s or 1940s that introduced something that is no longer relevant, but we continue doing it because good bureaucrats, we know our processes. Lots of streamlining can take place, lots of redesign can take place, and this has been ongoing. It's not something that is just done once, it's an ongoing process. And the civil servants, I think, of the future are going to be excellent process managers and capable of continuing to evolve and to refine processes over time.